letter landed on my desk not long ago from a man who had just turned 67. He had worked for the same company for 4 decades. He wrote only a few lines, but I could feel the weight in them. He said retirement had arrived, and instead of relief, what he felt was confusion. He felt unanchored. He felt as though the structure that had held up his entire life had been removed in a single afternoon. I understood exactly what he meant at my age. I still come to work because I want to, not because I have to. That puts me in a very unusual camp. Most people do not get to keep doing the thing that shaped their days, their identity, and their sense of usefulness for as long as I have. For most people, retirement is not an abstract idea. It is a wall they eventually hit. One day the alarm clock matters. The next day it does not. One day the world expects something from you by 9 a.m. the next day. Nobody does. People imagine that is freedom. Sometimes it is. But for many people it feels like stepping off a staircase in the dark. That is why I want to tell you something plainly. Retirement is not mainly a money problem. Money matters, of course. If you have not prepared, life can get hard in a hurry. But the deeper problem is that retirement forces you to answer questions your working life helped you avoid. Who are you when the title is gone? What matters when no schedule is imposed on you? What are you waking up for now? Over a very long life, I have watched people do brilliantly in business and poorly in retirement. I have watched men and women who handled millions of dollars with calm, disciplined panic when faced with a house that had become too quiet. I have watched people who thought they were preparing for comfort accidentally prepare for emptiness. So I want to walk you through 10 lessons that I believe matter enormously once retirement comes into view. Not theory, not motivational wallpaper. Lessons about money, health, curiosity, relationships, simplicity, fear, generosity, purpose, regret, and the use of time. First lesson, you probably need less money than you think. This surprises people because retirement fear is almost always framed as a number. How much do I need? What if I run out? What if I become a burden? Those fears are understandable, but I have found that many people do their retirement math using their working life as the baseline. That is the first mistake. Working life is expensive in ways people barely notice while they are living it. You commute. You buy clothes for work. You eat convenience meals because time is scarce. You spend money to recover from stress. You pay for speed because your days are tightly packed. Then retirement comes, and a whole set of costs quietly disappears. You are not commuting anymore. You are not buying professional wardrobes. You have time to cook instead of paying somebody else to save you half an hour. In many households, spending drops without any formal austerity plan at all. Then if the mortgage is gone, and I think paying off the mortgage before retirement is a wonderful idea if you can do it sensibly, your biggest fixed expense disappears as well. Suddenly, the mountain that once looked impossible turns into a hill. I have known retirees who lived beautifully on $500,000 because their life was well designed. They had modest overhead, strong habits, and peace of mind. I have also known retirees with $5 million who were terrified every day because they had built no emotional floor under themselves. They still felt poor because fear had become their lifestyle. The point is not that money does not matter. The point is that financial security is not simply the size of the pile. It is the relationship between your pile and your habits. It is whether your lifestyle is built on enough or built on endless anxiety. If you learn to spend less than you have, if you remove unnecessary fixed costs, if you stop confusing luxury with safety, retirement becomes much more manageable than the headlines would have you believe. Most people are not ruined by the absence of millions. They are ruined by refusing to distinguish between needs and habits. Second lesson, protect your health the way you would protect a compounding machine that you can never replace. When you are 30 or 40, the body is extremely forgiving. You can eat badly, sleep too little, move too little, carry too much stress, and still get away with it. The bill rarely arrives on the same day as the behavior. That is why people make the mistake of assuming the bill is not coming. Then later they discover that retirement with money but without mobility is not nearly the victory they imagined. I have watched people work for decades with dreams stored neatly away for later. Later I will travel, later I will hike, later I will spend long afternoons with the grandchildren, later I will enjoy the life all this saving was meant to buy. Then later arrives and the body no longer cooperates. The knees are shot, the back is unreliable, energy has collapsed, sleep is poor, medications dominate the calendar. That is one of the saddest trades in life. They sacrificed the present for the future and then arrived in the future unable to cash the check. So if you are retired or moving toward retirement, stop treating health as a side issue. Make it central, get checked, do not ignore symptoms. Because denial feels cheaper than action, walk every day. I am not asking you to train for an Olympic event. I am telling you that a simple daily walk can change the trajectory of your life. Strength matters, balance matters, sleep matters, food matters. You do not need perfection. Lord knows I have enjoyed my share of Coca-Cola and peanut brittle. but you do need respect for the reality that your health is the engine that makes every other retirement plan usable. A very large brokerage account cannot walk upstairs for you. A strong portfolio cannot play on the floor with your grandchildren for you. All the compounding in the world cannot buy back years spent neglecting a body that was carrying you into the most free phase of your life. Health is not a side asset. It is the asset that determines whether the rest of your assets mean anything. Third lesson, stay curious or you will start shrinking long before your body does. One of the greatest dangers in retirement is not physical decline. It is intellectual surrender. People leave work and, without realizing it, leave challenged with it. They stop reading deeply, they stop learning, they stop wrestling with ideas that require patience, they let the mind slide into passive consumption. Then they wonder why life starts to feel smaller. I have read for hours almost every day of my life, annual reports, biographies, history, newspapers, letters, books on subjects I know little about. I do not do that to sound virtuous. I do it because curiosity keeps the mind alive. The world stays interesting when you keep asking it questions. The day you stop learning is the day the edges of your life begin to harden. Retirement gives you something most working people say they want, but rarely know how to use time. The question is whether you are going to fill that time with numbing distraction or real expansion. Learn a language, study history, read better books than the algorithm wants you to read, take a class, figure out how something works. Ask questions that nobody around you is asking. You do not have to become a scholar. But you do have to refuse mental retirement. A curious person remains young in the ways that actually matter. They remain open. They remain flexible. They remain able to be surprised. I have met old people in their 40s and young people in their 80s. The difference is rarely in the face. It is in the appetite to keep discovering. If you want a retirement that feels alive, keep learning as though your future depends on it, because in an important way it does. Fourth lesson, invest in relationships more aggressively than you ever invested in things. I learned this one later than I should have. Work can make a person feel indispensable, and if you are good at it, it can become a beautiful trap. The trap is that achievement gives you clean scoreboards. Relationships do not. A business decision can be measured. A quarter can be measured. The market can mark your paper every day. But the cost of missing time with people you love often arrives without a spreadsheet. There were years in my life when business held too much of my attention. I can rationalize it. I can explain it. I can tell you I loved the work, and I did. But there is a very simple truth that becomes harder and harder to avoid as life goes on. At the end of the day, what fills your mind is not the brilliance of the transaction. It is the people you loved well, the people you neglected, the conversations you had, the ones you postponed, the moments you shared, the ones you assumed would repeat if you are retired. Use this season to correct your allocation. Spend real time with your spouse or partner. Not decorative time. Not time spent half listening while your mind is somewhere else. Take them seriously again, talk again, notice again. If you have children, call them, show up. If you have grandchildren, be there while they still think your presence is normal and not a rare event to be scheduled around. There are windows in life that do not reopen. Childhood is one of them. Health is another. Marriage can be another if it has been starved too long. Things will not sit by your bed when you are sick. They will not mourn you when you are gone. They will not remember your laughter, your patience, your stories, or your advice. People do that. So if retirement gives you back hours, do not spend them building a museum of possessions. Put them into relationships. That is where the real dividends live. Fifth lesson, simplify your life before complexity starts managing you. I have lived in the same Omaha house for a very long time. People have asked me for years why I never moved into something grander. The answer has always been simple. I had what I needed. More rooms would not have made me happier. More square footage would not have made breakfast taste better. More complexity would only have increased the amount of life I had to spend tending things that were supposed to serve me. That instinct becomes even more valuable in retirement. Most people carry a tremendous amount of dead weight into later life. Too much house, too much stuff, too many accounts, too many subscriptions, too many drawers full of things they no longer use but still have to store, clean, organize, insure, and worry about. Complexity is a hidden tax. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes attention, it takes peace. You do not need to become a monk. I am not preaching emptiness as a religion. I am saying that every unnecessary layer you remove creates more room for what matters. If the children are gone, ask whether the giant house still serves you or whether you now serve the giant house. If the garage is full of artifacts from earlier versions of your life, ask whether they are memories or obligations. If your financial life is spread across so many institutions and products that even you cannot explain it clearly, consolidate it. Simple does not mean small. It means intelligible. It means manageable. It means your life can fit inside your attention without exhausting you. There is a reason so many retirees feel unexpectedly relieved after downsizing, cleaning out, and reducing commitments. What they are feeling is not loss. It is regained control. A simpler life is often a freer life. Sixth lesson, give back, because retirement without contribution turns into drift. One of the great misconceptions about retirement is that the finish line is comfort. Comfort matters. I am not dismissing it. But comfort alone cannot carry a life for very long. Without contribution, a person starts asking a dangerous question. Why am I needed now? If work used to answer that question and work is gone, something else must answer it, or your days begin to hollow out. I have said publicly that I intend to give away almost all of my wealth. That is not because I dislike money. I understand money very well. It is because money is a tool, and after a certain point, if it sits there serving nothing larger than your own insulation, it starts losing moral usefulness. Most people do not have billions to give away. That is not the point. The point is that contribution scales. You can volunteer, you can mentor, you can teach a younger person what took you 30 years to learn. You can help at a local charity. You can give to a cause that aligns with your values. You can become the steady older person in somebody else's life. Contribution creates structure, dignity, and meaning. It prevents retirement from becoming a long sequence of days arranged around minor errands and television. It reminds you that your value did not retire when your job did. That matters. Human beings need to feel useful. The happiest older people I have met are rarely the ones consuming the most leisure. They are the ones still giving something away. Wisdom, attention, time, resources, encouragement, presence. Do not underestimate how much life comes back to you when your days contain service. Generosity is not only good for the recipient, it rescues the giver from a very small life. Seventh lesson, do not let fear become your chief financial advisor. Retirement produces a special kind of fear because the old recovery tools disappear. If something goes wrong at 35, you can work more, save more, start over. At 75, that option is much less available. That makes the fear understandable. But understandable fear can still ruin you if you hand it the steering wheel. I have seen people become so terrified of losing money that they guaranteed their own decline. They put everything in cash for safety. Then inflation spent the next decade eating their purchasing power like termites in the walls. They felt safe because the nominal number did not move much. In reality, they were being robbed slowly enough that they kept thanking the thief for his politeness. Fear also makes people sell low, stop investing at the worst possible moments, and refuse any measured risk that might improve life. Fear says hold everything. Fear says spend nothing. Fear says assume the worst and live as though disaster has already won. That is no way to retire. Prudence is necessary. Panic is expensive. Those are not the same thing. If your plan is sensible, if your spending is under control, if your emergency reserves exist, if your portfolio fits your actual needs rather than your fantasies, then you do not need to live in a permanent state of alarm. Markets will fall, headlines will scream. Crises will come and go. None of that is new. What matters is whether you have designed your life in a way that can withstand turbulence without your emotions liquidating your judgment. Do not let fear talk you out of living. Be careful, yes, but do not become a prisoner of hypothetical disasters while the actual years still available to you pass by. Unused eighth lesson. Find a purpose that survives the loss of your job title. This is where many retirees get into real trouble. They think they are retiring from work. What they are often retiring from, without realizing it, is identity. If your whole adult life trained you to answer the question, who are you? With a profession, then retirement is going to feel like somebody erased your name tag and forgot to hand you a new one. Purpose does not have to be grand. It just has to be real. Maybe it is being the grandparent who is always available, always wise, always calm. Maybe it is building something with your hands. Maybe it is writing down family stories so they do not disappear. Maybe it is teaching, mentoring, volunteering, reading, gardening, traveling with intention, learning deeply, showing up consistently in a community that would feel your absence. But you need something. Without purpose, retirement turns into waiting for lunch, waiting for the weekend even though every day is now Tuesday, waiting for a call, waiting for something to happen. That is not freedom. That is a form of decay. Purpose organizes time. It gives the morning a reason. It gives effort a destination. It gives your life continuity after the paychecks stop. If work used to tell you where to be and why to be there, then you now need to build that answer for yourself. Nobody else can do it. Not your spouse, not your children, not the market, not your savings account. This is your assignment. People think retirement means escaping obligations. Sometimes what they really need is a worthy obligation of their own choosing. Find it, protect it, let it pull you forward. Ninth lesson. Understand that you cannot take your money with you. So stop behaving as though preservation is the only form of wisdom. I have spent my life around capital allocation. I understand the thrill of compounding. I understand caution. I understand wanting a margin of safety. But there is a point at which caution mutates into waste. The waste is not necessarily financial. It is existential. It is dying with resources that could have been translated into memory, generosity, relief, or joy, but were instead guarded so tightly that they never served the life they were supposed to support. Use your money intelligently. That does not mean recklessly. I am not advocating nonsense. I am saying take the trip while your knees still work. Visit the people you love while they are still here. Help your children or grandchildren while the help can actually change a chapter of their lives. Donate while you are alive enough to watch the effect. Buy experiences that matter, remove burdens that do not. Money is a tool. It is not a score to be admired in the abstract. If you spend your final decades staring at the tool and never building anything worthwhile with it, then the tool has mastered you. There is no prize for maximum untouched wealth at the cemetery gate. None. Your satisfaction in the end will not come from the number itself. It will come from whether you turn that number into a better life, deeper relationships, and useful service. The goal is not to die poor. The goal is not to die rich. The goal is to die having used your resources wisely in proportion to your values, and without having let fear turn abundance into permanent postponement. 10th lesson, make peace with your past, because retirement is too valuable to spend in argument with things that cannot be changed. As people age, they often become historians of their own mistakes. They revisit old decisions, old failures, old betrayals, old mischances. They replay them with the painful clarity that hindsight always offers. If only I had saved earlier. If only I had worked less. If only I had been a better parent. If only I had not trusted that advisor. If only I had bought that stock. If only I had never sold that house. The list can become endless. That is a terrible use of the years you still have. I am 94. I have made mistakes. Plenty of them. Some financial, some personal, some I saw clearly too late. That is called being human over a long enough span of time. But here's what I know. Regret can educate you for a while. After that, if you keep feeding it, it becomes theft. It steals the present in exchange for a version of the past you were never going to get anyway. Make peace where you can. Apologize where you should. Repair what is still repairable. Forgive other people, if only to stop dragging them around inside your own head. Forgive yourself too. You made decisions with the information, maturity, fear, hope, and limitations you had at the time. So did everybody else. Learn what the mistake came to teach you. Then stop kneeling before it. Retirement can become one of the richest seasons of life if you stop insisting on rehearsing old trials in the courtroom of your own mind. Look at today. Look at what remains possible. Look at who is still here. Look at what can still be built. There is an enormous amount of life available to people who stop living backward. If you take all 10 of these lessons together, the pattern becomes obvious. You need less money than fear tells you. You need more health than youth teaches you. You need more curiosity than comfort encourages. You need deeper relationships than ambition naturally leaves room for. You need more simplicity than the culture sells. You need contribution if you want meaning. You need prudence without panic. You need purpose after the title vanishes. You need to use your money instead of worshiping it, and you need peace with the past if you want a real present. Retirement is not mainly an ending. It is a reveal. It reveals whether you built a life or just a career, whether you cultivated people or just transactions, whether you learned how to be alone without being empty, whether you know how to spend time without somebody else assigning it, whether you can receive freedom without collapsing under the weight of it. That is why I tell people not to treat retirement as a finish line, but as a different kind of test. Not a test of endurance, the way working life often is, a test of wisdom. Can you live with enough? Can you care for your body? Can you stay interested? Can you love people while you still have them? Can you simplify? Can you give? Can you stay calm? Can you remain useful? Can you let go? Can you be present? If you can, these years can be extraordinary. Take a walk today. Call your daughter or your son. Sit down with your spouse and have a real conversation. Instead of a logistical one, open the book you've been meaning to read. Clean out the room you've been avoiding. Give something away. Write something down for the people coming after you. Decide what your mornings are for now. None of these actions are dramatic. That is exactly why they matter. Life is built on repeated, ordinary choices. So is a good retirement. I have had an unusually long time to observe how people live, how they age, what they regret, and what they cherish at the end. The answer is never what the culture shouts. It is almost always quieter than that, more human than that, more ordinary and more profound. Take care of yourself, take care of the people you love. Live below your means, but above your fear. Keep learning, keep serving, keep simplifying. Keep showing up, use your money as a servant and never as a master. Let go of what cannot be changed and invest deeply in what can still be made good. Do that, and retirement will not feel like falling out of life. It will feel like finally having the freedom to arrange life around what was always most important. That is the real prize, not net worth, life worth. And if you choose well from here, your best years may still surprise you.